This conference will now be recorded.
It is 6 o'clock. I will call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. If everyone will rise, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, we want to thank you for this opportunity to serve you and to serve this house and this town. Father, we pray for our leaders as tomorrow we vote for different offices. We know how important that election is, and we pray for your wisdom and guidance for the American people, for the pursuit of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Father, we know that you are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and so we pray that you would have your hand on that important election. And we give our allegiance to you, and we pray that we remember you as we pledge our allegiance to our flag. Let's turn to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scott. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 3rd, the November 4th agenda.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Minutes approval for October 3rd, 2024.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for October 3rd, 2024, subject to one minor change in 8AI, removing the word limited that's listed twice.
Okay.
And simply just make it limited to one vehicle covered for your tears.
Okay.
You might have copied exactly what I said, so. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I was not present at that meeting.
Okay. I think we have 3 that weren't. I think Scott, Melody, and Dusty were not at that meeting. So if we can make those changes also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor of the minutes approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here, so.
Okay, motion carries with an abstain. Okay, public comments on agenda items. Okay. All right, moving on, business items. A, vape shop ordinance language. An ordinance of the town of Surfside Beach to amend certain sections of chapter 17, zoning of the code of the ordinances of the town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina. I'll turn it over to Heather.
If you'll notice in your packets, I've put the vape shop language, and I wanted to let you all know that that language that I continue to put into the packet for us to discuss, I found that language that you all worked on whenever the last time that you were working on this. So that language is from Myrtle Beach and from when y'all worked on it the last time. Just so you know where it came from, I think the last time I asked if y'all wanted a draft ordinance, and that was what y'all wanted, some language to kind of start with and then go from there. And then we have the table that also kind of breaks down the differences on what we want to do. But like I said, the vape shop language is language that you all worked on in the past as well, just so you know. It didn't just come out of nowhere. It was what you all had worked on with Sabrina in the past.
Did you get an opinion from the police chief?
I did get an opinion. He has no personal or professional opinion as to the location. They will do as they need to,
Okay,
provided an event arises. But he said he has no personal or professional opinion on their location. If you want to spread them out or corral them together, that was his guidance.
okay. Thank goodness we're in a 2-mile town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
while we're on the subject of opinions, I know Heather has a footnote that, these are subject to legal opinion. I don't want to spend 6 months creating a masterpiece that the lawyer's going to shoot down in 3 minutes. Can we get some guidance from the attorney as to which of these things are legal and which would not be, so we don't waste a lot of time?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that make sense to anybody else?
And I think he has the language. I just need to follow up to verify.
I mean, we talked about a variety of, in your chart, there are a variety of things, and I sure would hate to spend 6 months writing something that's not legal.
Agreed. Thank you.
I guess what we also need to do is just create some sort of direction.
Mhm.
And then he said, well, maybe you can't do that, but if you modify it, we can do it this way or whatever.
Yeah, what can we do?
Yeah, I think we're a little more familiar with what we're looking for than a generic version from him.
Mr. Chairman,
That's my, yes, sir.
to add to that, I think if maybe we can come to a consensus of what we believe, according to this chart, might be best, it would help to narrow it down for the attorney.
Yeah, I think most definitely we need to come up with something from this chart. Obviously, we've got different recipes, so to speak, as far as geography and business type and zoning. Let's maybe tonight try to narrow that down. What do we want, As far as existing, where we want them, where we don't want them. Do we want them facing this direction? Do we want to just put them all on Sandy Lane? So I'll just kind of open that up for discussion,
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
without the attorney being here, are you aware of our ability to limit a quantity of business types, period?
I am not, and I reached out to Myrtle Beach and they sent me their regulations because supposedly it's my understanding that they regulate by number of business types. And the regulations that I found did not have anything that regulates by number of business type. He said he attached the regulations and didn't answer my question. And then in the regulations, I did not find that. Maybe it's something I'm gonna have to reach out further and kind of get more guidance from somewhere else. Maybe the town attorney can guide us.
So, yeah, I do remember a few years back, they regulated the quantity of scooter rental
Okay.
businesses. I don't know if that held up, if it's still there, but there was an issue with the gazillion scooters bouncing around. They just narrowed that.
Well, and as we heard last week, there's people who want to regulate the count on several businesses in town, not just vape shops. So,
Yeah, I think if you bucket a vape shop business type limitation, it would be under the umbrella of general health and safety, as opposed to, there's only 4 chicken places in certain
Yes.
beaches allowed. Like they're a little bit different where you could caveat the business type requirement limitation. So as I see it, we could limit the number of businesses, period. They could be anywhere, or, minimal restrictions. We could limit them geographically or limit them by zone. I think the zone is out because that would require us to create light industrial, which we've gone down that road and kind of reverted back. So it's quantity of businesses, period. We are only allowed 3 in Turpentine. Inside of that, you could say they have to be 2,500 feet apart, can't be across the street from a school. We
Been
can
done-
say,
been
we
done
want them
before,
on,
yeah.
we want them on Sandy Lane only, or any other specific geography. We want them on 17 corridors so we could see them and not, hide them in the shadows. So to speak. It's kind of the only paths we can go down. So if we scratch zone, those two right orangish columns go away. And that leaves us with quantity or geography. We know we can't outright say no vape shops indefinitely in town because it's a legal business in the state.
Right.
So that gets rid of the blue on the left. So we're with the yellow and the green.
You have to address existing businesses.
Yeah, on the third row down, that would be, do we grandfather folks in or not? I think we should, one approach would be, what's the ideal way to do it? Or what do we think is the ideal way collectively? And then, once we have the ideal down, then it's, well, what do we do with the existing that are not in the ideal? If we say we're only gonna have 2 in town, because we determined this is a detriment to public health and safety. And we have 3 right now, if I'm thinking correctly.
We do.
We'll allow 3, one approach is allow 3, if one of them shuts down, another one can't pop up, and there's only 2 left. Gets a little trickier if we move the geography into Sandy Lane or commercial, not facing 17 Business or Frontage Road. None of them fall into that category now, so we're basically saying all 3 are grandfathered in and new ones can pop up in these other spots. If you're interested, I think limiting the quantity is a great first step. And shrinking it. 2 mile town, 1 per mile. Have 2, 1 goes out of business. There's
I
only
think-
2 left, and we're not forcing a business owner, regardless of the method they use to get their foot in the door, retitling things as convenience stores or something else. Just don't feel great about telling someone to shut their doors as a business.
I think that's a great start, and I really like the 2 miles, 1 per mile. I like something like that. That way, you're quantifying it. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know if 1 per mile floats or.
I don't know
We got
either, but
8,000 feet apart, which basically makes it 2 in town. I don't know if we could limit quantity, like
Yeah,
Myrtle Beach
that
did
would
with
be
the
great.
scooter rentals, or, I'm just spitballing here, because,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you can't cap the number of businesses, using the geography is kind of gonna do that.
the distance, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, the distance between.
Well,
meeting.
we'll say if we said limited to C1 west of 17, not facing a residential area.
So that would be
Now,
Sandy Lane.
basically, you've gone to the east side of Sandy Lane.
Yeah.
Your only qualifier, for the most part.
Counterpoint, we have 3 here now, 3 more show up in Sandy Lane, now we've got 6.
Right. I agree with I'm just saying if we can't cap it.
Gotcha.
If we can't cap it, I think capping it is the way to go. But if we can't, using the geography metric might.
Yeah.
Can't hurt.
So I guess my questions would be, can we limit it to whatever the number is? And while limiting it to a quantity, can we put on a pretty steep distance between them? which effectively,
Yeah.
you know, stops any weirdness from creeping in. And I think we need to define what a vape shop is, so that, I recall you saying in a previous meeting that while you're here, no more of the convenience stuff, none of that stuff's gonna fly.
Yes, sir, but we need that in right, we need
Yeah.
it
So like,
codified, yes,
like,
sir.
again, just spitballing. If more than 20% of your retail sales revenue is from vape-related merchandise, you're a vape shop. Right, so that allows Circle K to, sell what they sell, whatever that stuff is. Different vapes,
I like,
shoes and
you
stuff.
could add something like that to the definitions.
While you're looking at that, I've been looking at the 50%. And I'm curious where we got 50% from and if that could be increased to 75%.
Could we change, you're saying 75,
They
25?
gotta be 75% convenient, 25 vape.
By what
That's
measure?
just my,
By what measure? Revenue, quantity of,
I mean, it's gotta be inventory value. I mean, I think you could use any one of those.
well, it gets really easy to get around.
Whichever
a lot of
one's
this stuff.
easier to enforce.
That would be revenue, inventory value. I could take a bar of gold, put it in the corner, that's worth 100,000,
Yeah.
And- offered for sale for $250,000, and the rest of my store can be
Yeah,
other stuff as long as it's less than $250,000 of inventory. So it would be
Right.
like revenue, that would account for.
revenue,
traffic.
sales, yeah, okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
yeah, I'd like to know where we would get the metrics, where we would get the data from, because quite honestly, I'm concerned about the truthfulness of anything a business like that would report. If you can get it without asking them, that's one thing, but taking their word for it is not satisfactory to me.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so when I'm reading this proposal that she has provided us here, I mean, it's specified in the definition of smoke shop and tobacco storage, which includes any establishment that's selling vapor product. And it's particularly saying any incidental or ancillary display is considered a vape shop. So that would overrule anything with a convenience store or anything else, because I mean, if the vape shop was under a business license of a convenience store and it has more than an incidental and ancillary display, then it automatically is classified as a smoke shop and would be prohibited. That's in the definition portion of 17441. It says smoke shop and tobacco store shall mean any premises with more than an incidental and ancillary display, sale, distribution, delivery, offering, furnishing, or marketing of alternative nicotine. So I believe in the past, we didn't really have a definition for smoke or vape shops, and that's where the issue come into play of a convenience store is what I'm thinking. So I think it corrects it. I think it'd be a lot of work to determine sales verse and then the truthfulness of it as well. I think that definition there will correct any kind of convenience store in the future.
But you're, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Incidental and ancillary are subjective, right? That's right out of the gate, the definition is what's incidental. And I'm not saying it's not hard to, I'm not saying it's easy for someone to determine. We already capture gross sales as a town. There would just need, if someone wanted to, I don't know if it could be part of the business licensing, if they are gonna sell vape products, they on an annual basis need to give us a breakdown. And again, we're trusting people, but
We have no reason to trust.
And those are typically randomly done too. I mean, it's usually, if I say I'm doing $200 and okay, I pay. And in the past, randomly, they ask for audits on businesses, just maybe 5 or 10 a year.
or you can,
I don't know if you could just specify these businesses to be audited every year.
Might be harassment.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what
I mean, there is ordinances in our ordinances allow them to approach an audit at any time. I've researched it before. We do have ordinances like that.
Right.
Now, as far as
But
being
it's-
able to do that,
Who would do the audit?
Right, who pays for it?
Nicole?
it's in one of our ordinances. I'd have to go through it. I would say probably the code enforcer or the business license department.
Usually the business license, because it was very random and it was not that many. I agree, it's there, but it's not done for every single business that has a business license.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure that we should create more work that may be difficult to really get done and achieve, that, I think we've got to deal with it in other ways. To say that there's going to be an audit every year, I agree, could be harassment in a way, but also, I mean, just realistically, if the town is responsible for doing that work, what kind of cost and what kind of that would be labor intensive, I would think, to have that expectation.
Well, I will say, a lot of times it was not necessarily an audit, it was requesting tax returns. So then it was not really a whole lot of revenue expense for the town.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Just spitballing, as we're saying.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
just-
that's a
I'm
good
just-
conversation. Maybe another one for the attorney. Would it be appropriate for an ordinance to give the town the subjectivity? Basically, in some legally, you say, if it looks like a duck, the town can call it a duck. We walk in your vape, your convenience store, and it's a vape shop based upon what we reasonably deem a vape shop to be, you're in violation of your business license.
I don't think that would be too subjective.
But it flips it from the business owner having the benefit of subjectivity to the town, saying, I've got the authority to say what's a vape shop or not.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I think all these ideas about audits and inspections are great, but this town has tons of ordinances that say wonderful things, and they've never been properly enforced. And I think it's pretty idealistic to think we can have the business license people out checking on businesses that they haven't checked on in 50 years.
Well, I would like to think that, one, we would be allowed to cap the number of businesses. I think this is a last resort
Yeah.
type thing,
Yeah, I want to cap
If we
them.
can't cap them, then we use the geography idea. And if that doesn't work, then we got to figure out another way.
Got it.
I kind of think they're a little more, they might be more intertwined, because we can cap and say 2 vape shops, and I come in and say, I'm gonna open a convenience store again. Like, we'll be right back in this vicious, like,
Yeah, make it
cycle.
any easier.
Is there an ordinance that says if you open a business type, you need to advertise it as that type of business? If I open a bagel place, can I put a sign
I
that
don't-
says Alex is Towing?
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. I don't want to speak for, I'm not all the way versed in all of our ordinances. Still kind of getting very familiar with our zoning ordinance, so I don't want to speak without.
It might be kind of a backdoor way to help as well. If an ordinance was created saying your advertising signage needs to match your business type, then that new vape shop that went in would only be able to say Bob's Convenience Mart, as opposed to smoking vape.
Or not any signage to the effect that you're talking about, not just, I know when you go to some of the other stores, they've got interior signage. Like if you go to beverage place, it has Budweiser, or it has Miller Lite, or it has stuff like that, and that all pertains to the business. It had to be, to your point, it had to be strictly convenience store advertising. Instead of slipping in Alex's towing in the corner,
Share.
something, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Am I the only one that remembers the massage parlors?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yes.
Don't be.
Yeah.
That was a good laugh. Thank
Doesn't
you.
matter what the sign says.
It's true.
It's very true.
So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So has everybody, I mean, is everybody saying Sandy Lane is completely out? That option is not, are you guys saying?
I'm not. I kind of lean towards quantity, but I think it could be easily sold.
I'd like to cap them, but we don't know if we can cap them, and I also still think we could cap them and put them on Sandy Lane.
Right.
Well,
I-
it would self-enforce.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think there's no doubt we can zone them to Sandy Lane
Yes.
without any issues.
Yes.
Without any. I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
But adding a couple of more on top of it,
I would be in favor of that.
capping it, putting, if they want to come in from here forward, that's where they go. I mean, the zoning works in, there was a gentleman's club here in town. Same thing happened. They zoned them right out. Couldn't be this far from a church, this far from the school, this far from the
They
highway.
did too.
And 6 months later, they were done.
Mhm.
That was way back in the 80s. But it works, can work,
Yeah.
if done properly and legally. Because whatever we do here, we're gonna be under a microscope from this industry.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure we do it correctly.
Absolutely.
No loopholes, no side doors.
No, sir. That's what.
Everything's
That's
gotta be,
elected enforcement.
it's gotta be above board and stamped by our attorney.
That's, if you notice in the definitions, I've tried to go above and beyond and cover any and everything. So if there's anything else that thinks we need to be adding to it, I'm trying to avoid any kind of loopholes. I do not like those when people find those and just slide in. So,
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so if I heard you correctly, we could throw a limit on, assuming we could. If we throw a limit of 2 on, we have three here, all 3 would be grandfathered. In addition to the limit, we could put some distance metrics in place and location of any new shops need to go into Sandy Lane, but no new shops can go in because we already have 3. We're over our limit of 2. If all 3 went out of business where they're currently located, theoretically, 2 new ones could go on Sandy Lane, max. Limited, I'm throwing the same numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Max number 2. And if we really wanted to go further, to your example of the gentleman's club with multiple, we could then look at the signage and say, and so we're basically getting rid of people's ability to have drive-by and foot traffic by putting them on Sandy. If we get rid of the signage, there's not even gonna be a sign, so like a business owner would look at that proposition and be like it's a non-starter.
Yeah.
And we're not doing something potentially wrong for the existing 3. If they could survive where they're at, I mean, it's water under the bridge.
And if they don't survive where they're at from where they are located, the future's not very good for that business in town.
And being grandfathered in, they're not able to sell
Right.
and
yeah,
they
they can't.
effectively took away the value of the business.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I would question, I mean, if we have the new vape shop, which is considered a convenience store, I mean, how is this affecting them? I mean, they're not gonna be grandfathered in because they're not a vape and tobacco shop, so, but they're operating as a tobacco shop, so how does this ordinance or how is our proposal gonna affect that?
That's a good question.
Because technically they're a non-conforming
Yeah.
business
That-
currently,
Yeah,
and they're still in business, so I don't understand the proposal here. We're not grandfathering that one in because it's non-conforming.
So, Mr. Chair.
Is it, yeah,
So that would bring another question for the attorney. Can the town step in and say, you're now a vape shop? You're grandfathered in, but that convenience store, 50% of sales, stuff that was all verbal, I think, right? There's no written record of.
not that I found, no.
You're a vape shop, now that's on your business license, now you're subject to whatever.
I think they would have to get a variance, and if the Board of Zoning is going to approve that, because I mean, technically it's a non-conforming business, so I wouldn't think the Board of Zoning would do that, but
I think so.
it's iffy. I mean,
That's your call, but which way I'm leaning.
but I mean, any information you can get on what we should do with that one, or
Those
what we can do with it, definitely.
two of them are like that. There's one, sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, you keep.
My
you got-
understanding is there's one of the 3 vape shops opened as a vape shop. 2 of them are convenience stores. That's my understanding. That might be something to just verify. I think we were told that.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
that's my understanding of how things progressed and how they moved forward with the most recent one, because they set the precedent in 2022 by allowing it as convenient.
So if we grandfather in vape shops, they're just gonna be like, whatever, I'm a convenience store. I'm not grandfathered in.
Yeah, so we would need to look at,
I've seen all the info, how their business license says convenience store.
Or 2.
Or 2, yeah. And the 50% are there any checks and balances on that? We've kind of talked about this up here, but on those, how do we verify that they are
we have not,
a convenience store
not.
and not a vape shop? You know what I'm saying?
I haven't following, yes, sir.
I mean, I would think if there's even a verbal agreement that it's a 50-50 deal, you gotta meet some kind of standard
I agree.
to keep your business license as a convenience store. I mean, I think that's how we approach it. We're certainly not wanting to grandfather a non-conforming business, I agree.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
another item is, I mean, and anytime the business licensing department hands out or permits a business license, it should apply with the NICS. So, I mean, allowing a convenience store to open would probably not be proper procedure just from the business licensing department, because, I mean, we're giving them a different classification and they're operating in a different business as well. Because as you mentioned, I think they applied on the actual permit and everything as a vape shop, and we ended up giving them a convenience store. So I don't know if that was a decision based off of the business licensing folks or how that happened. I have no idea, but still they're out of compliance because they're operating as a tobacco, even with the NICS, because they should be in a tobacco form. So, I mean, I don't know how they're paying taxes and stuff related to a convenience store when they're operating as tobacco. I think it should be matching the business if I'm not right. So.
You know, if they're operating non-conformingly, that is not really, we're not the enforcers of that. I mean, we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, it's just our opinion.
You just gave me a really good idea to do that, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there's many things the town can do, absolutely.
The town,
Yeah, the town.
Oh, that
the
was,
town,
well, you just,
Yeah.
really good idea, Dusty.
Yeah.
I like that.
I agree.
Read
Say,
between the lines, I hope you, that was,
I would love to prod somebody, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking about a lot of stuff, but I dissected this, of course. So I hate to move the different thing, but Heather, are you, is this your proposal? Or, I mean, I understand it's a draft, but is this just something that we think we're gonna move forward with, just with adding certain language in it?
It's just, put a draft and then we could add, take away, whatever we wanted to do with this. It was just something that we could have so that we could have somewhere to start.
Okay, are you looking to put it in the, I would assume, Article 4, Division 4, under supplemental district regulations? Is that where you're looking to do it?
That was where I was looking to.
So one item I will state, just as we continue the draft or provide a final, under section 17-440 here, it's noted here, but unfortunately in Division 3, it looks like they went over to 17-440 and used that in the Division 3 with sexual-oriented businesses. So we may need to, I don't know how that works with being division, it should be
Okay.
in that, but that maybe need to be a 441.
Okay.
We already got a section 443, and then so forth. 442,
Yeah.
442. And another question I had, why would we, so we have a lot of ordinances back and forth, it's hard to keep everything. Why would we add the definitions inside of this division and not just go ahead and apply them in the chapter 17 overall?
I love that question, Dusty. Thank you so much. That is actually, I'm just following what's been done. If I could completely overhaul the ordinance, which is something I would love to do, if I had all the time in the world, I would do that. And I would put it as an appendix and all the definitions for sexually oriented businesses, for smoke shops, for all the definitions for zoning would be in one location and we wouldn't be jumping back and forth and looking for definitions all over. I just followed what was existing.
Okay.
That's not really the way I want to do it,
Yeah.
but I just kind of followed what was there.
Yeah, my preference, I get tired of going back and forth, just like you're saying. I think if it's in chapter 17, all your definitions with the definitions, and you go back and forth to that definition list. I mean,
Yes.
that's up to the rest of the
I
commission.
agree.
Another item, so even though that we're correcting and looking to amend this or whatever, I think we also should be amending section 395, which is our use table. So I don't want to go ahead and send this to them and then turn around and we still got to update the use table as well. If we're going to allow this in C1 and stuff, we probably should have this side by side in making sure we're amending section 395, 17395 as well as this.
Correct.
And the other question was, we talked about a little bit of what steps does the town take to identify and record existing businesses as a grandfathered in? Is that something you just go in a file or something and say, this is the signage and stuff was up and they can't put any more signage or they can't put any more product? I mean, how is a business grandfathered or considered? How would you know if you come into the town just now, how would you know that business is grandfathered in?
I don't think we have anything. You'd have to go into each file individually to determine.
But there's some type of document or in there that says what's grandfathered in and everything in that.
It would be in the property files, would be like when maybe, now, yeah, good, thank you, Angie. It might be, if the records were kept how they were supposed to be for a long time, you should be able to pull a property file and it would be able to tell you all the history of the permits, the zoning, anything that's been done, change of ownership and everything. In theory, it should all be in the property file and you'd be able to find all that information. Now, how we don't have like a running list or anything like that. It would have to be done individually.
So when we issue permits related to signage or a business permit or anything like that, do we always go get the file and research that first before we issue the permit?
Yes, typically we pull their file and go through their information.
All right, and the next one is, I went back into the sexual oriented, which was the Division 3.
I kind of use that one too for like a guide that might be why they kind of look similar.
I figured that. But in that one, it had some special enforcement measures to be able for you to suspend or kind of penalties for the establishment. Is that something you feel like we may need to add an extra layer instead of using our Chapter 4's regular business license suspensions ordinance? I think there was special measures we took on sexual oriented businesses
I think
that
that
we
probably-
applied to this particular.
I think
business.
that might be an avenue we need to explore with this.
And I don't know what that would be, but I just want to make sure we're able to enforce something if something does happen, and like this up here, we don't know what to do with it. I think we need to make sure we have some type of ordinance or language in here to be able to make that executive decision.
Yes.
Kind of circle back to the vape shop language. That's our actual business license. That's our business item, so. I think what you're talking about is good, but I don't have a copy of where I can reference what you're saying. You know, I don't have 395 in front of me. I just start at 440 unless somebody else got different than I do.
Yeah, but it's all within this division and this ordinance that we're creating. It all ties into it. So any amendment or anything to this chapter, Division 4, or adding this chapter is going to actually reflect the Section 395. So, I mean, it's something we'd have to do
Right.
on. And this particularly, what I'm talking about, hasn't been, but another item is, I don't know if it's, if language we could be using, if prohibit some type, I drove around looking at these vape shop signage and everything, and it may be something we have to put in the signage ordinance, but I don't know if it pertains to this either, if we're creating its own little division here for tobacco shops. But I mean, like pot leaves signage, I mean, if it's a design and graphics, they have that down there. They have the actual pipes or whatever down there in a lit illuminated signage on these businesses. So is that something we would prohibit in this ordinance, or something we'd have to review in the sign ordinance?
Probably reviewing the sign ordinance. I don't think we would want to add too much because then it will be a lot of back and forth.
Okay. And then I also had the question around Alex. He mentioned that how do we permit a sign or whatever when the business is naming. So, I mean, that's good. I think that's about it for me.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I don't disagree with anything Dusty's saying, but I think there's a basic principle, anytime you write an ordinance or change an ordinance, that every section of every ordinance in the town needs to be reviewed to make sure we don't have conflicts. It's not specific to this one. The same thing is, you can do a search on a word and find it in 10 other ordinances, and we've not been good at doing that. It's not just us, it's the town I'm talking about. We do things with blinders on or in a funnel, and we don't consider what we just did to the police department. We need to do better at that as a town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so we had a 6-month moratorium. We're now down to 5 months. Whatever we come up with, probably take 2 months between a public hearing and town council to vote one way or the other. So that leaves us 3 months effectively. You're gonna go talk to the attorney, you got a litany of questions, you'll come back next month. We'll probably have another litany of questions, and all of a sudden our time frame gets pretty narrow. So is there a way the attorney can join us on next month's meeting?
I was gonna request that tomorrow and actually see if he can either, if we need to host a special meeting where he will be, or if he could come to our scheduled meeting. But I was gonna ask that be a possibility, because he would be able to answer these questions a lot better than me relaying the information.
Well, I think too, if we give him what you've been taking notes on too, kind of prepare him where we're going with this, so he can be prepared, not just blindsided
Yeah.
with some of our ideas.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've always had that problem with the planning commission getting legal advice. No matter who's sitting in Heather's chair, I'm sitting here saying, well, I wonder what she asked him. Because, you know, this three-way thing is, I'd rather hear the question and the answer in public than wonder if Heather asked him what I'm thinking or she asked him something else. It
Yeah.
just gets very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, if he can't come on, just tell him it would be great if he could come, but it would surely be nice to meet with him this year.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
I think this, Mr. Samsel created this chart here, is that correct? Did you?
He did.
Yeah, which, fantastic. You know, it's a lot of information and it's a great, fantastic chart. I personally like to narrow things down if possible, process of elimination. And after this conversation today, I think we can probably eliminate some of these just so that it makes it a little bit easier to narrow this down. At this point, do we all agree that the existing vape shops are not going to be dissolved, correct? I mean, is that? My understanding is that that's not,
Under current, what we're currently doing, you're right.
but we need to keep that open.
Well, I think when we get to the quantity, you know, we probably need to draw a line in the sand. And if we can't do that,
I
then
see.
we go to the geographic. I think all of these, I think the far right is the one you were really talking about, the light, just really not using the light industrial and really focusing on business 17 and C1 and
So
the
the
geographic part of it.
two columns on the right and the two on the left.
Yeah,
We can't say no,
right,
no vape shops. So that gets rid of the blue. We're not doing light industrial, I think.
right.
I
Get
don't
rid
see
of
the
the
need
far
for
right,
it.
So really, we're at yellow and green.
Yellow and green.
Yeah, there's your choices. That make it easier?
And it's great. Yeah, no, I
Sorry,
like it.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. So, you know, short of what you were kind of mentioning, though it's still an if about the Sandy Lane option, is that what we're saying? So that we would keep orange. So, but we could eliminate
No.
blue.
Now,
Because it's
green
not
can say,
industrial.
orange is doing light industrial, creating a new zone.
Correct.
So we're not gonna, but we can still do Sandy Lane without the new light industrial zone. So,
Gotcha. Okay, so we can just kind of eliminate the light industrial idea. But blue looks like it's out, right? So, which is wonderful. So that leaves us with 2, 4, 6 columns. And do you have a name for this chart here? No? DR 115?
yeah.
Is that okay?
Dashboard.
Um,
So you said 6. We went from 8 options to 4.
4,
to 4.
8.
just the yellow and the green.
Okay, but we said the orange, if Sandy Lane was an option,
Because it's not industrial. We wouldn't do that.
right, we wouldn't do light industrial, but we could still have,
We can still have Sandy
Which is
Lane
part
as
of
far as the
geography.
geography, yes,
Right.
absolutely.
okay. But the existing dissolve, I thought, short of, limiting, I don't see how we can dissolve the existing shops.
I'm not saying we should, but theoretically, if we were to say all vape
With
shops
zone.
have to be west of 17, not on frontage road, basically we're saying Sandy Lane,
Yeah.
period. No, and no, we may have a leg to stand on to say existing ones need to.
So they
I think
would
it's
not
smart.
be grandfathered in then at that point, right?
That would be an option that exists in the whole world of options.
Right,
That
okay,
is
all right.
technically,
I'm just trying to narrow things
Yeah.
down if possible. So, okay, thank you.
That's why we would need an attorney's opinion before we
Right.
move forward.
Right. Okay,
We get too far in the weeds with this, we need to have a legal plan. Any other thoughts on, I know we bombarded Heather with a lot of ideas and thoughts, but that's what we're good at.
Some really great ideas there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
so I just have kind of a question, just kind of a logistical question, because I don't really know how it would work. let's just say that we limited them to Sandy Lane with, a certain number of feet that can't be within 1,500 feet of a church, can't be within 1,500 feet of a school. So let's say that there's a vape shop. And right next door, a church wants to buy that property and open as a church. Do we tell them no? What happens with that? How does that?
I'm not exactly sure how that
I think
would
that's a
work.
good question.
That is an awesome question because I don't know even,
I mean, whether it be like a day school or,
I don't know if you need a variance or.
I don't know,
some kind of-
but
how that would work.
We're telling the vape shop they can't be near a school, but we're not telling the school it can't be near a vape
Yeah.
shop.
right.
Maybe
So,
it works both ways.
I think the town would,
but I just wasn't sure what happens in that kind of situation.
I think the town would have to grandfather it in. I don't think we could make it move because we chose to business or give a business another
Yeah, I
license.
agree. I think once it's there, if
Yeah.
somebody chooses to locate,
I think that would
that's their
probably be
due
on them.
diligence.
I think, yeah.
Do we know if there's anything in state law
I was
about vape
just gonna
shops
say.
being near schools, et cetera? It could be a state law thing.
I was just gonna ask that question. Is there a law
Kind of
that
an
would
after the
supersede?
fact, isn't it? I mean,
I don't,
the vape shop was there and then the school opened.
Yeah, so do we tell them, because then we've got a vape shop near a school, but it's not the vape shop's fault.
Right. I don't know.
I just wonder if state law says you can't have children near a vape shop. I don't know.
Or a church.
Or
I
maybe
would say,
the law says
we
the
can
church
implement
can't
verify.
open because of the vape shop within 1,500 feet.
Right, but I'd like to know that,
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to open a can of worms, but I just was like, what
Oh, no, that
happens
was
in that
great.
case?
It's kind of the reverse of
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
normally expect.
Right.
We need to cover all bases, and I think we're being as discouraging as possible.
Without being obvious.
Pretty obvious.
I'm pretty sure it just went on public record.
Oh, goodness.
that's a
Any
great
other,
question,
any
thank
other
you.
thoughts, any other ideas? Obviously, I think we've narrowed the chart to where it's manageable. A lot of the ideas, I think now we're probably in the hands of our attorney. And I think once he gives us a framework of how we can go and it be legal or hold up in court, I think that's, like I say, if he can meet with us on,
I don't care if we have to have a special meeting with him, I think it's worth it.
well,
We're stymied without enough information.
so we're actually looking at December the 3rd. So we're early.
Mhm.
Like I say, if we're not beyond having 2 meetings a month, if we get into January. Any other thoughts or ideas for Heather moving forward? Like I say, I think this will help her frame her ideas as far as updating the, purposes and intent. I think you did a good job there as far as the health and safety. Like Alex mentioned, that's the way for us to stand on, general welfare of the town. It's 1,500 feet over on about page 4. So I think we're starting somewhere.
Mhm.
So does everybody agree that we'll keep feeding you ideas,
And I'll
And then
update
you get with the attorney, figure out a good date for him. I'm not sure there's a ton else we can do till then, just keep trying to figure it out.
I think we've narrowed down what we'd like to do, we just don't have enough information to
If we
proceed.
can.
Yeah, Mr.
How
Chairman.
can we? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember and remind folks that we are business friendly and we believe in business. And this is a unique situation. Having a bunch of regulations and restrictions for businesses, I think is un-American under the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But this is unique, and I think it's important to remind, once we have this all together, to remind why we're pursuing this. It's because of the safety and the ethics and the, children and next generations in this town. But just a reminder that we are business friendly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
State law says that vape shops and tobacco retailers must be at least 1,000 feet from schools, playgrounds, and childcare facilities.
Where are you looking this?
But does it say,
Where the vape shop's there first.
Yeah, I don't know
does the
about that.
church have
I'm
to
just-
be 1,000 feet from the vape shop?
I don't know that. I just.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Any other thoughts? Everybody good? Okay.
That was a good meeting.
Public comments. Everybody rush at one time. Commission comments.
Got one, just to think through.
Yes, sir.
We're changing that covered vehicle, the one covered vehicle, and that's all part of 17-427. Additionally, in that same section are a bunch of other things related to large vehicles, boats, trailers, and probably should look through that at some point.
Yeah.
Right now, somebody has got an F-250. They're considered a large vehicle. It's 22 foot long, large vehicle is 21 foot long. I've got a 19-foot boat, 23-foot trailer. I can't have that in my F-250. I can't have two F-250s. I know two people in town that have two F-250s. That sounds silliness, but like as I read through it, it was just a little bit nonsensical. Some of the stuff, it doesn't mesh up with the reality of what people have. And a boat and a trailer are two separate things. I could have a 23-foot boat, but I can't have it on a 23-foot trailer. I got a 23-foot trailer, but I can't put my boat on it. Right? Right? So, not asking us, right? We got enough
Yeah.
stuff with this here, but since we're touching that ordinance,
Mhm.
and if you're gonna put that in front of town council, they're probably gonna look at the rest of the ordinance, I would think.
Okay.
And go, well, you're changing that up there. There's 3 other sections here that relate to trailers, large vehicles, RVs and stuff, and it's a little gummy.
That's good
Probably will
information.
look at it, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so for me, I just know we have a lot going on. I know this is going to take a lot of our time, and it is a priority for us. But in the past, we had absence of a director and all that stuff that we still have a long list of items that we have not addressed, and some that we have. So bylaws, we're operating out of compliance right now as far as our bylaws. So it's something we need to bring and revisit back up. Also, the land use chart, I know we did a lot of work with that. Somebody has the records or reports to that. I think it's important to go back through that or find our research and what we had already worked on. So I know we spent a lot of time on that and we still haven't got that. Presenting our recommendation for capital improvements comp plan, I think we have a 5 or 6 month owed recommendation from this commission that was supposed to go in front of town council related to budgets and the capital program that still has not been presented. So I'm just curious when that's going to take place. A tree ordinance, of course, the Stormwater Committee is has been working on a tree ordinance for the last 3 years. Something I believe they're getting to their final stages now. Currently, the tree ordinance is in Chapter 17, which the commission pretty much owns that chapter. I'm sure they can present it, and it's great that they worked on it and everything. I understand that, but my issue with that is we've been out of touch for 3 years with that ordinance. So now that it probably should come back to us and we're going to have to review that 3 years worth of ordinance changes. And that's going to be probably a lot of work as well, I believe, because we need to figure out what's going on. We may have to need a meeting with them or whatever. So I really feel like that tree ordinance should have probably been aligned with the commission and that workload. I understand, I researched the minutes, the Stormwater Committee, that council at that time did present it back and let the stormwater committee do it, but they created a whole new chapter within our ordinance that they didn't even modify our own ordinance. So I have a lot of issues with that, considering that it's something in chapter 17, and now we're gonna have to do a lot of work in understanding what they come from and what changes they did. So just keep that in mind as that comes up. Another item I would say, we are a planning commission. We don't receive any reports or anything stating like any issues outside of anything. I know when I read your resume and everything, I guess you did some planning commission work and stuff. I'm not sure if you were their liaison or how you did that in the past. What kind of reports or anything did you provide that commission to be able to make recommendations or to find issues within our ordinances? Because my understanding is the planning commission is supposed to be a separate entity outside of the administration and council. And we have authority from council, but we're our own commission and we should be doing our own work. And I understand you bring up your individual items and stuff, but I'm just saying, how do I know there's an issue within somebody coming wanting to build several houses or something? They're saying, well, this ordinance just is crazy. How do I know that without me knowing anything? So.
I'm sorry, you want me to provide a report? Is that what?
No, I'm just saying, in the past, have you provided the commission with any like applications as far as new house buildings or anything like that? Or say if you had several contractors come into your office and they're like, well, this ordinance is just crazy and I don't know why you have to do this or whatever. When does it come to the commission or something to say, maybe we need to look into this ordinance or change something within the zoning ordinance?
We actually did talk about that a little bit last month, about if there were issues that were glaring in the building department that maybe needs to come to us for review, that certainly she could obviously do that. Because if there is a problem, yeah, I agree. I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
you're
just
fine.
saying
I
it
can
was
give you a
mentioned.
great one. Setbacks. It's a lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the best example that I can provide
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but in the past, we would provide, in my experience, we would provide a staff report to planning commission, say, due to these reasons or this research, we found that this ordinance is not following, or it's, out of date, or it's not typically due to like contractors not being able to do exactly.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, but it's something that I can start tracking for sure, and if there seems to be, but our ordinance needs a lot of love in general.
And that's where I'm coming from. I mean,
Okay,
nobody can recommend the ordinance change in chapter 17 but us, but if we don't know anything and don't have any reports or stating that
Okay,
something's
yeah.
an issue, I really don't know it's an issue, and I'm sure the commission doesn't know to say, hey, we probably need to review this.
absolutely, yes, I can totally get you something on that, because there's definitely, some areas that we can work on for sure.
And then, of course, the district overlay design. I know the business committee met last time. I'm sure we will do future work on that as well. I have a lot of concerns with the district overlay as well. So hopefully that'll come back up. And I've asked multiple times around the sign ordinance. Definitely need some changes in the sign ordinance. So I understand we got a lot of work with this and everything else. I'm open to staying longer or maybe extra meetings myself. But I think as a commission, we need to be pushing forward with some of these items. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commission comments? Do I have a
Maybe
vote?
one. Yes, just off topic. Tomorrow's a pretty important election. If you haven't voted, make sure you vote. Some say danger to our democracy. Some say, well, we're a constitutional republic, so maybe it's not so much. But I think bottom line is, I think we should remember, if we have a faith, to pray for this country. America is an amazing, amazing country. I remember Ronald Reagan said, we may have our problems, but we're three times less problems than any other country in the world. So, House, Senate, a lot of different elections are going to be happening tomorrow. So think think of this country and pray for it and pray for our future. And I think we still have a wonderful future ahead.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. I didn't figure we'd have any discussion.